Hey YouTube, it's week 2 of Brave New World. This week I'd like to talk about identity and whether it's actually dystopia. Let's start with identity. So my question is, does anyone in Brave New World actually have their own identity? Let's consider. 1. We know that everyone in the book is well conditioned, and they're conditioned in the same way. So everyone has the same mannerisms. For example, they all hate roses. We can see a scene in which they are all conditioned to hate roses on pages 21, 22, and 20. Oops, went out of order. In this scene, roses and books are laid out on a table, and babies are allowed to crawl towards them. When they've all started to successfully interact with the roses and books, they're shocked. I should mention at this point that they're not metaphorically shocked, they're actually literally electrically shocked. And startled with, really loud noises. After, we can see that they try again, and none of the babies want to crawl towards the roses or books again because of the shock and noises they experienced earlier. The book also states that this is repeated over and over and over again to solidify the concept in the babies' minds. In addition to common conditioning, the inhabitants of the world state also share other qualities. For example, many people share the same DNA because of the Bokanovsky process. In fact, up to 92 people share the same DNA, and usually around 74. The book states that everyone in a certain caste looks similar. That's also why Bernard stands out, because he's abnormal in that he's short, and he doesn't fit the general description of alphas. So all in all, I've got to wonder, well, what makes the people in the world state unique enough to be considered, well, unique, and with their own identity? Anyway, I have to move this along because I have really limited time tonight. So, next up on our topic is whether it's really a dystopian civilization. Well, first let's define dystopia. Note that I'm getting this definition straight off the internet and I don't necessarily agree with it, and I may actually argue with it and then argue with Brave New World isn't a dystopia or whatever, but yeah, we should probably just get the official definition first. And wikipedia.org/wiki/dystopia. Okay, so Wikipedia defines dystopia as a community or society, usually fictional, that is in some important way undesirable or frightening. It is the opposite of a utopia. Such societies appear in many works of fiction, particularly in stories set in a speculative future. Dystopias are often characterized by dehumanization, totalitarian governments, environmental disaster, or other characteristics associated with the cosmic decline in society. Blah, 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 blah. I find it interesting that this article mentions Brave New World in conjunction with 1984, which is described as a totalitarian invasive superstate, and Brave New World is described as a book where the human population is placed under a caste of psychological allocation. Also, aspects of the film Demolition Man, Fahrenheit 451, The Hunger Games, The Iron Heel. Cool. Okay, so I think that what it really comes down to is how do you define a utopia? Because a dystopia is relative to what a utopia is. And honestly, I feel like you can't really define what a utopia is because there are just so many people in the world, so many people now, that have differing opinions, and you can't define a utopia for all of them. And because of that, you can't define a dystopia, and because of that, you can't actually say whether the world state is a dystopia or not. And besides, where's the undesirable or frightening aspect of it? I mean, accepting people like Bernard, who are abnormalities in the system, it's actually kind of a pretty great place for everyone, right? I mean, you don't really have to do anything. Everything's provided for. When you feel pain, you just take Soma. I mean, I'm not saying I would want to live there personally. I'd rather have pain and have intelligence and stuff, but no one's unhappy. Okay, I really do have to wrap this up, but tell me what you think in the comments down Australia, because I'm interested to know if there are any people watching this. But yeah, disagree with me, agree with me, whatever. You can subscribe to me up there. I don't know. Whatever, etc., etc., I think that's about it. Bye, YouTube. See you next week.